How's it going, everybody? In this video, I wanted to cover a couple of things real quick in regards to what I've been studying, what methods I've been going about to study, and a quick apology for not putting out a lot of content lately, and what my goals are here in the next 30, 60, 90 days. So, first and foremost, I want to apologize for not putting out any content. I know I don't need to apologize, but it's more or less being a content creator and someone that's got I feel like a larger YouTube audience than I've had in the past. I get pissed when all of my favorite TV shows don't put out new episodes every week. So, yeah, I can feel your pain if you're waiting for me to put out new content. You're like, okay, when's Rob going to post a new video? So I'm going to try to do my best to do that more. But I wanted to make sure that the content that I was putting out was good enough, right? I've tried to raise the bar consistently on the channel to be at a standard that, to me, is what needs to be on YouTube. So if I'm ever going to compete with any of the other big platforms as a content creator and as a technical instructor here on YouTube, I feel like I have to level up my game a little bit. So that's basically what I'm doing. I've also got a little bit of a new setup here. I'm working on some ideas as to, how things are going to be working, different mic positions and stuff like that to try to give you guys, a little bit of a better audio experience. So, all that good stuff that goes into play with that. So, what have I been studying lately? First and foremost, VMware NSX. Now, we're not talking NSX-T, we're talking VMware NSX. So, a lot of really cool stuff. I've been diving headlong into NSX 6.4.9, and I've been leveraging a large portion of CBT Nuggets. They did an NSX course a couple of years ago, and I've been going through it. Really good stuff. I've actually got a working scenario going on, and I'll take a few minutes here towards the end of this video and show you what I've built and what I'm doing and all the cool stuff that goes along with that. And that actually inspired me to look at diving into the data center track a little bit, not like CCNP or CCIE level, but more or less, how does a solution like NSX get deployed on network switches like the Nexus 9K? So I started diving into that a little bit. I've got a little lab built that I'm going to be trying to get some content built around covering VXLAN and things like that. Some of the newer technologies that are out there that I really haven't spent a whole lot of time diving into. So some really cool stuff there. So those are going to be the things that I'm working on in the interim. I would love to go knock out a VMware Certified Advanced Professional, the data center virtualization track. I'd love to go knock that out and then go take the VCAP for NSX. My goal is to finish out the NSX-V, which is just running NSX on vSphere. I'm hoping to have that done in another week or so. The last week or two have been rather busy for me personally, so I really haven't had time to focus on anything else. But that's giving me some time to really focus in some areas, which has actually really helped me accelerate my learning in a couple of those areas. So it's actually kind of funny, is something that I thought would take me months to learn, I'm actually going right through. And you never really know how you're going to tackle something until you actually spend the time to tackle it, right? And, learning from my mistakes and from just kind of waffling about different technologies and not really focusing a whole lot on one particular area to try to okay, let's focus on this, get it done, and move on to the next thing. I still want to get my CCNP and security knocked out. And I had been wanting to focus on a lot of the concentration exams. I already knocked out VPN, as you guys already know, on the channel. And then I was going to go do firepower, then ICE, and then circle back and do the security core. And then I was like, well, that would be a great plan if the CCIE labs, or specifically the security lab, was available for me to take here in the States. So the last time I checked, which was just the other day on, I believe, Valentine's Day, I checked, Richardson, Texas is still closed. So I can't even take the CCIE lab if I wanted to. I'm like, all right, well, so guess we're not taking a CCIE lab anytime soon. So there's really no reason for me to dive headlong into preparing for another CCIE if I can't take the CCIE lab. So I'm focusing on other areas. And my goal was, and has still been, to tackle a lot in 2021 and try to get through as many certs as I can, not just because I can tackle them and earn the certification, but it's to go through things that I've always wanted to go through. Instead of just wanting to go through them, let's just execute and go do it. So that includes knocking out NSX. There's been a number of reasons why I wanted to cover desktop mobility, doing like a VDI environment. And I've got that I started the process, and then I ran into problems. I didn't realize how much Active Directory and vCenter and everything else was tied into DTM. So I'm having to slow that process down and be like, well, maybe we need to refocus our attentions on that a little bit differently. Maybe I needed a little bit more reading, try to understand how all the pieces come together a little bit better. It took me a long time to understand NSX, and now that I understand it, I fly right through it. DTM, I feel like I'm in the same spot like I was with NSX. I need to spend the time to learn it and understand how it all works. So that's one of the things that I definitely want to go focus some of my time and efforts on. So my goal is I'm going to record some content around NSX-V specifically on the channel here in the next couple of weeks. And I'll show you what the topology looks like here in just a moment. But that's one of my main goals, because I figured I've spent this much time going through it, I might as well record the content around it, because there are still people out there that are running NSX-V and they don't have any bare metal pieces of equipment out there running just like Open vSwitch, and they're not trying to deploy NSX on KVM. So that's one of those things where it's like, okay, when it does come time to do the NSXT piece, to take the VCP and the VCAP, then I'll focus on those areas a little bit more in detail. But in order to pass the VCP, which is my current goal, to knock out VCP and V for NSX, oops, I keep bumping the mic, I'm not used to the mic being right in front of my face, to knock out NSXT. So that's one of my main goals right there. So my goal is to knock out the videos for NSX-V, then go and tackle NSXT, learn how it all works. I've bought some content for that through Udemy. There's a couple of NSXT courses that I want to go through just to get familiar with it. I've already got the NSXT bits. If you're interested in how that works, I pay for a VMware Advantage subscription. I think it's $200 a year or $100 a year, something like that. There's a monetary fee that you pay, and then you get access to what they call the eval experience. It's one of the best things I ever did when it comes to VMware, because you get, not only do you get all of the bits, the operating systems, the ISOs, all that type of stuff, you get those so you don't have to try to hack down from some sort of weird website or go to VMware's website and maybe they will allow you to do an evaluation. This way here, you're paying for the access and you get licensing. That's the biggest piece right there, because licensing for this stuff, like NSX, I didn't know I needed a license for it. And I'm like, okay, so I went on to the VMware eval experience, and I was like, oh, there's a license. I copy and pasted it in, applied it, and boom, it started to work. I was like, huh, okay, that's cool. So I was able to get that piece to work. So really, really cool stuff, and get that squared away. Once NSX-V is out of the way, then I'll focus on NSXT, create some content around that. And at that point, I'm probably going to circle back, knock out the Security Core exam. And once Security Core is covered, meaning I go through all the videos that are available to me, and I go and take the Security Core exam. And once that's done, I'll have a CCNP in security. I'm hoping to have that done by March. Not the beginning, but towards the end of March, because it's going to take a couple of weeks to go through all the videos, take a bunch of notes, and stuff like that. I consider myself a pretty fast learner, and I retain the information pretty well, but it's just a matter of sitting down and, going through whatever videos there are and preparing for the exam. So my goal is to knock out the VCP for network virtualization covering NSXT in the next couple of weeks. Then I want to go knock out CCNP Security Score exam. And then, once I've got those two under my belt, then that would get two major goals that I have set up for the first quarter of 2021 out of the way. And then I'd be able to refocus my efforts and focus on desktop mobility, because I would no longer need to knock out NSX. I wouldn't care about secure CCNP security because it would be already done. And then focus on doing the desktop mobility course, going through, getting it up and running, getting it operational, learning all the bits that need to be learned, taking the time to learn it the way that it needs to be learned, all that good stuff. Once that's done, I actually don't know what I would do after that. It's kind of funny, but a friend of mine, his name is Patrick. He's a collaboration CCIE. He's got his own YouTube channel, and he has kind of inspired me to dive into collaboration a little bit. Consider I've got phones deployed and some other stuff. I would like to dive into collaboration world a little bit. I also just recently bought a Cisco 2504 wireless controller. And over my shoulder here, you can see that I've got right here, I've got some wireless access points. So I believe those are, when in doubt, you can always look, right? So this is a 3702. Yeah, this is a 3702. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but this is a 3702. You can see that right there, 3702. And then I have the next one below that. This is a, oops, don't break it, Bob. 1142. That's what that is. So we'll go ahead and, that's an 1142 right there. And then I also have an 1131. This is what that is. This is an 1131. This is an old AP. So there we have that. So those are the APs that I have. So that's my goal, is to, I'd love to go down the wireless path and spend a little bit of time diving into the new CCNP wireless exam, the enterprise wireless, and I'd love to take the implementation exam. That's a goal that I have as well. I think wireless would be easier for me to grasp initially than collaboration, because I don't know almost anything about collaboration. I do have some wireless experience, so I think that would probably be my next goal, would be to start knocking out CCNP wireless. And then from there, I really don't know. One thing that I was actually kind of disappointed on was when Microsoft retired the MCSA, the MCSE for the server track. So like MCSA Server 2016. I actually really wanted to go knock out a couple of Microsoft certs, and I'm not a big fan of putting all my eggs in the cloud, because I don't think not everyone's going to do cloud. So I'd love to do an MCSA, but unfortunately they're no longer out there. So that obviously won't be happening anytime soon. So maybe I still cover the technologies, do some videos on how Microsoft works. I really don't know. But those are some of my goals. And at some point in the future, do a VCAP, the VMware Certified Advanced Professional. But my goal isn't so much to go super deep in any one particular area, like CCIE level or VCDX. It's more or less to get a little bit more well-rounded, because one mistake that I made when I got started in IT is I was very front-side focused on getting very good at network routing and switching. And that definitely helped in the career path, don't get me wrong. But one thing that I didn't calculate for other things. You know, didn't really pay attention to anybody else's advice. I was like, okay, I'm going to go focus on getting the CCA lab done, and then we'll go from there. So that's one thing I wish I would have spent a little bit more time on, with some other areas, to make myself a little bit broader than deeper necessarily. But the cool thing about it is because I have the depth that I have, other things come relatively easy. You know, it just kind of comes with the territory. Once you learn something, you hear about stuff, you understand how it works, you're in pretty good shape. So I find I pick up things relatively quickly. So that definitely comes from the deep dive in the technologies that I've done. So I'm not going to hold myself back per se. So just to recap what I basically just talked about, I'd love to knock out the VCP for network virtualization. after I go through NSX-V and NSX-T, and then I'll spend time, I'll get the VCP out of the way. Then I'm going to circle back and do the security core exam. That'll take a couple of weeks to go through and do all that. And if you're wondering, like, well, are you taking this like with no prior experience on security core? No, I'm not. I've got a pretty, I wouldn't say a huge background in all the technologies, but I'm fortunate that I've got a number of different video resources available to me, and I'll sit down and I'll watch the videos and I'll get a good idea what's going on. I got the Cisco Learning Network. I've got their official video series that I bought about a year ago. Well, not even quite that long. It's been about 6 months. I bought that. I think it was like $1,000. So I got that. So I'm still gonna go through those videos, get them knocked out, so that I can move on, get CCNP security knocked out. So that'll give me a VCP network virtualization. That'll get me the CCNP security knocked out in the first quarter. Those are my goals. Not saying that they're actually going to become happen. They're not going to happen, but that's at least that's my target. And then from there, I'd like to, like I said, enterprise wireless. I love to dive into collaboration and get more familiar with that. But I'd also love to dive into desktop mobility and stuff like that. So they're not technically in any one particular order either. The nice thing about that is I can adjust my schedule based off of what I'm seeing and how I feel. So let's go ahead and take a jump over to my topology. I don't really have a network diagram, but I'll show you the environment that I've got built and some of the cool things that I'm working on, because I'm planning on blowing it away, and I will bring you guys in a following video, not directly after this, but my goal is to basically rebuild everything for NSX and be like, okay, here's what we have to build and lay out. I have to create a network diagram for it so you guys will understand how all the intricacies come together, because it's not exactly an easy thing to understand how all the things that I've deployed in order to get things to work the way that I want them to, and based off the way that the videos have been explained to me, not everything is super straightforward. So you have to kind of figure it out a little bit, if you will. So, but I'm going to cover those. I have a remote desktop connection to the VMware environment. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Pull this back up and do lab. All right. So basically what I've got built is I have an environment built where, go ahead and log back in. Those 3 new Cisco C220 M3s that I bought a few weeks ago. Actually, it's been probably closer to a month now. Give it a second to load here. I bought these servers, and what's cool about it is, let me go ahead and close that out real quick, is these servers right here are what these are. So I have, these are physical servers. This is not running inside a VMware workstation. These are physical servers right here. So I have this guy right here. This is a C220 M3. And if I was to go to the summary tab, it shows it right here. This is a C220 M3S. Right? It's got 64 gigs of RAM, and it's got dual 8-core CPUs, 32 logical processors. It's kind of a beefy system. I've got 3 of those. I've got host 1, host 2, and then I've got host 3 down here. Now, my goal, and what I did, is I initially got ESXi 6.7 deployed on there. And then I went ahead and I have another server. This guy right here is another C220 M3 it's got 32 CPUs. It's got a lot of RAM in it. It's got 256 gigs of RAM on it. That's why I bought it for the RAM. But what ended up happening was I needed a compute node and I needed a management node for the cluster. So let me actually let's talk about this for a few minutes. So I have the 3 physical servers. They are part of the physical lab, right? You can see physical lab cluster, physical lab 2 cluster, so on and so forth. And then I had to add a management cluster. And I don't necessarily think it's required, but it definitely helped with the logical understanding of everything. And what I did was I deployed vCenter. vCenter is actually sitting on this server right here. This is the vCenter server that I'm logged into. This is running on this other ESXi host that I have running. So I technically have 4 total hosts in my environment. And then what I did was I deployed NSX Manager 1. I got NSX Manager 1 deployed, and then I connected it to VCSA 1. Once I had these two guys communicating with one another, then I went ahead and I deployed, once I logged into the vCenter server, VCSA 1, once I logged into it and I integrated NSX with VCSA, I was able to deploy the first and only controller here, which is the NSX cluster controller, which is designed to control how the NSX environment will work. And then from there, I was able to install NSX on this host, and this host. So I got all 3 of the physical servers deployed with NSX. And then from there, I was able to come over here to the networking and security piece. I was able to get the installation upgrade. I was able to get the install to work. I have my controller nodes. I have 1 controller deployed, and then I was able to do host preparation. I have in the management cluster, I've got this one server over here, 10 to 55 1.100. I was able to deploy NSX on this, as well as in the physical lab cluster. I got those guys rolled out. I deployed VXLAN to all that, got the communication working for it. In the logical network settings, I created some VXLAN ranges and some transport zones. And I got some logical switches tied to the prod TZ, and then as well as the universal transport zones for doing cross vCenter communication. I'm still trying to figure this piece out yet. I haven't spent a ton of time trying to do cross vCenter. And then I went and I started deploying logical switches. So I've got several logical switches that I've rolled out to get everything operational, and so far everything's been working out pretty well. I got that part done, and then I went down here to NSX edges, and I've been playing around with both the DLR and the Edge Services Gateway. So I can do east-west communication with the DLR. I also can do north-south traffic with the Edge Services Gateway, do the NAT, the routing, the load balancer, and things like that. Some pretty cool stuff, both one-arm load balancer and inline. The only thing that I haven't really tested out yet is the VPN capabilities for remote access VPN, as well as site-to-site VPN, and then layer 2 VPN. I haven't done any of those yet. Those are going to be coming in the near future. But this is some of the cool stuff that you get to go do. I have played around with a little bit with the firewall rules. I still need to spend a little bit more time on those, but I wanted to lab those up more specifically, meaning that I wanted to get some actual lab deployments rolled out, and then like when you're doing load balancing, whether it's one-armed or inline, to lock down the communication from the outside to the inside. So we're only going to allow specific flows to come through and monitor and things like that. Then you have the distributed firewall over here. This is your distributed firewall. Right now I really haven't deployed anything on that. I'm still playing around with how it all comes out to play. And then when it comes to things like SpoofGuard for doing dynamic ARP inspection and DHCP snooping, and if you over here you have service definitions where you can do, installation down over here. You have service deployment where you can deploy things like guest introspection and stuff like that. So you can do some more involved, which is more, guest introspection is how you would do like an identity-based firewall, and integrate with Active Directory, and then you'd be able to manage who's doing what and where. The tagging that comes into Service Composer. You can do a lot of stuff up here with your security groups. You can come in here and you can add a bunch of different things and all the cool stuff that you get to do when you're dealing. So actually, sorry, I want to come over here, groups and tags. So you can do things like IP sets, MAC sets, services, IP pool, security tags, and you get pretty involved. But this is all more or less advanced stuff, right? And then what I did is I went ahead and I deployed the vRealize Operations Manager. So if I come over here and I pull this guy up here, we are actively looking at the environment that I've deployed. And it's pretty cool. It gives you some vRealize Operations Manager. I haven't deployed Verni yet, the vRealize Network Insight or anything like that. Some pretty cool stuff when it comes to how all this stuff comes together. So if I come back over here and I go to Realize Operations, give that a second to pull up. We'll see that it's tied in. I've integrated it with the NSX. It does take a while to get working and things like that, but it's a pretty cool little environment that I've got built here. So at the end of the day, this is basically what it is that I was going for. There's vRealize. vRealize pulls up. So some pretty cool stuff when it comes to operational and stuff like that. So that's more or less where I'm at. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time diving into those areas so that I could spend, like, I can come up with several videos on how all this stuff works together and come up with a bunch of different lab ideas and stuff like that. So a lot of really cool stuff. I'm really looking forward to diving into this stuff and showing you guys some videos. I'm actually going to completely blow away that environment and rebuild it from scratch. So show you guys how to deploy NSX, and because I want to get it to the point where, like, the servers themselves, there's I only have virtual machines running on them. Like, we're taking an environment, like if you went back to the original VMware set of videos that I did where we deployed a few hosts inside of VMware Workstation and got the iSCSI communication to work and all that type of stuff. I basically want to start off where we don't have any really thing advanced. We don't have vCenter deployed yet. We want to go and build this out from scratch. So, and then I'll be able to integrate other things like data center virtualization into the whole mix of it, and then tie in NSX as well, and vRealize operations and network insight and stuff like that. So we can take a look at how those details work. And my goal is to, once I get a series of videos built, 15, 20, 30, 50, whatever the number comes out to be, is that I can start releasing videos on a more consistent basis. But right now I don't really have a whole lot recorded. So this is actually going to be good for me because then it gives me some practical deployment experience. So that's really the whole purpose of this stuff. So really cool stuff. I've actually been having a lot of fun doing this. So hopefully you guys will learn some stuff as we're moving forward. If there's anything you guys would like to see me demo, if I can, let me know down in the comment section below. But I do want to thank everybody for the continued support and hanging out with me and coming by and checking out the videos that I've recorded. So yeah, other than that, I'm just going to start rambling. So you guys have been awesome. Thanks so much. And I'll see all of you guys in the next video.